Very pleased to have with us from Reason Magazine, J.D. DiCilli. J.D., how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Well, you bet. Thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for writing about this front page story in USA Today, all about Camden, New Jersey, and how gun control fails and has failed to make Camden a safe place.
Yeah, the USA Today picked up on something that's been proven time and again for thousands of years, which is that outlawing things doesn't make them go away. If people want to get hold of them anyway, whether they're goods or services, black markets are created to create whole new business opportunities. And Camden, as the police chief of Camden County points out, is a city and a state with the second tightest gun restrictions in the country, according to the Brady campaign, but has third world levels of violence.
Yeah, and Anderson Baker, a guy who now says he's a former gang member, but engaged in dozens of shootings. He said over the years, and as USA Today quote him, he didn't need gun shows or shops, nor was he slowed by background checks or waiting periods. He says he got his guns by borrowing them from family and friends, never encumbered by New Jersey's gun laws, never had a background check, never had a gun permit. And yet these are the answers we keep hearing time and time again from these politicians about what will make places like Camden safer.
Well, it's really easy to go in front of the public and make these promises about how you're going to deliver this new legislation, how it's going to change the world. Legislation doesn't really change the world, though. It might create barriers, but if you create barriers to things that people want, you create business opportunities for people who are willing to ignore those barriers. And the people who don't want to be restricted will then go around them themselves, and you create this whole new black marketplace. We've seen it with drugs, and we've seen it with alcohol back during Prohibition, and now we see it with firearms. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody because it happens again and again. But here we are once more discussing this in Camden, New Jersey, living proof that gun restrictions don't keep guns out of the hands of criminals.
And at this point, JD, when the evidence is so stark and it's so apparent, when Anderson Baker says that gun laws to people in Camden are like saying you'll get a ticket if you jaywalk. If you're Mayor Bloomberg, or if you're a Vice President Biden, or even a President Obama, I mean, at this point, when you continue to push for these things that are already in place in Camden, don't have an impact on the lives of people who live there. At this point, I mean, aren't you doing an injustice to the people that you say publicly you're trying to save and trying to help?
Well, of course they are. I mean, they're posturing and they're lying and they're holding out promise that can't be met. But to a large extent, I think the Michael Bloombergs of the world are very intelligent people. I think they understand that prohibitions of all sorts don't work. But I think what they're looking for is political advantage. I don't think Bloomberg is an honest person. I think he knows that these laws aren't going to have the impact, the results that he wants them to have. He's seen this in the case of drugs, for instance. I mean, drugs are illegal all across the United States, and yet they're widely available in New York City. With guns, you can blame other states that don't have as restrictive laws as New York has, and that allows him to build up a base of support in New York City, and while blaming Virginians and people elsewhere. But the end result is the same thing. He's not going to eliminate guns from New York City. The federal government itself estimates that there are 2 million firearms in New York City, but there are permits for only about 60,000.
Yeah, and I've said this story a couple of times on the show. When I met my wife, she was a single mom who was living in Camden with 2 kids, and my daughter's now 26 and my son's 22, and so, I think about what the life my kids would have had they grown up in Camden, and the life that my wife would have had she continued to live there. And I know that even in the worst neighborhoods, you have more good people than bad living there, and it I got to tell you, JD, it drives me crazy to see a story like this, a very well-reported story by USA Today, and yet you'll have gun control advocates around the country ignore what USA Today says because they want to continue to feel good about what it is that they're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to blame Pennsylvania for not having restrictive laws, and therefore it's Pennsylvania's fault the guns make it to Camden.
Right.
Camden is a victim of a host of bad government policies far beyond just the gun issue. I mean, there's economic policies, there's their educational system, there's the fact they had abolished their police force.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of problems that policy has created in Camden.
And that go back decades.
Yeah. Oh, and they go back decades, and they're entrenched at this point, and there are good people in Camden who are suffering because of this. Gun restrictions are just one of those policies that the people of Camden suffer from because it has now created this black market that fuels the criminal elements in Camden and makes life that much worse for the good people.
Yeah. Well, listen, JD, I appreciate you coming on the program. I've got to ask you as well because I know you've been talking about the NSA scandal. When you see how big, and when Americans, I think, start to understand how big this is, and perhaps even how long this has gone on, is this a moment, let's say, a teachable moment for Americans when it comes to our civil liberties and our privacy?
If this moment, when we're looking at a government that is using its tax collectors to go after its political opponents, we're looking at a government that is investigating journalists for writing about the government in an awkward way, and we find out that the government is scooping up wholesale phone records from the population at large. If this isn't a wake-up moment for the population about how untrustworthy government is and how dangerous it is to let it scoop up this kind of information about all of us, then I don't know that the American people can be teachable. Hopefully this is the teachable moment we've been waiting for.
Let's hope so. JD, thanks again for your time, so really appreciate it, and look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you.